Meeting has been given public notice and in accordance with section 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin State Statutes in such a form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all trustee present. We'll now proceed to citizen input. Is there anybody that would like to speak this evening? Please come on up, come on up, state your name, your address, and we ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
I've noticed a large groups of people using Kinderberg Park, either through renting the pavilion or just coming there on their own to use the basketball courts or to use the splash pads. Over the years, people have been driving up and down through the Kinderberg Park on the sidewalks that are meant for pedestrians. But what often happens is people are trying to take a shortcut, or they're just, wanting to park closer to whatever facilities that they're trying to use at the park. And I've called many times to the non-emergency number to Germantown Police and been often told that there's not enough resources, but it's on a list and they noted the call. Again, over the July 4th holiday, there was a few situations that also, I guess, led to some property damage. And I noticed people that were hanging on the basketball rims, and it caused damage to the basketball courts. They're also playing loud and obscene music, but they're also using, don't know the right word here, but derogatory, racist name calling amongst themselves. Is also some of this vulgar profanity was loud enough that the music was playing that also had the same type of lyrics. And then there were young kids around the splash pad, which was completely inappropriate for that type of environment. There seems to be a lot of vehicles that come to the area that are not from the Germantown area. They're coming from, I believe, Northwest Milwaukee. I live on Donjus Bay Road and I see them often driving back home. They don't have license plate tags, or they have expired tags. I've seen kids hanging out the window as they're driving. It really creates a public safety issue, not only for the people that are using the park, but also anybody that is occupying the roads, because if you don't have license plate tags on your vehicle, you're not registered, there's no way to report that to the police. And they often wind up parking on Heritage Hills Parkway, which is next to Kinderberg. I believe that's the correct road. And I see them there all the time, no license plate tags. It seems like it'd be very simple for the police department to come out there, and if they're able to issue citations or if impound the vehicle. I don't know if that's an ordinance that the village has. But again, another incident happened last night. And so that's why I decided to come here to speak about that. There was a group that were using the splash pad, about 30 or so. And I've seen people grill out and they throw their hot coals at the lamppost, but they were driving and there were a few other residents walking their dogs and walking their kids. And they had come by, and obviously the other pedestrians were concerned enough that they mentioned something to the owner of the vehicle, and they yelled back at them and said, "Hey, you can't be driving here." And they were essentially told by the person in the vehicle and the party at the splash pad to mind your own business. I left out some words there, but you can probably figure what those were. So you have residents of Germantown that are concerned, and you could see the shock on their face and the concern that they have. And you have people that are using the Germantown facilities, but they are not residents. They don't have the respect for their own vehicles to follow their own laws, and they don't have respect for our property. And I don't know what more can be done with the police department. I did send an email to Chief Snow to hopefully see if there are some problem-solving ideas that could be used to address this issue. But I wound up calling the night emergency last night I believe one of the women that felt threatened by this did call 911. I don't know, you'd have to follow up with that. Police did respond last night, but again, I saw the officer as he was coming. I spoke with him and I told him, look, there's cars here that have no front bumper, no license plate, no rear license plate, no tags whatsoever. And I'm really concerned that not only is a threat to the safety of everybody that's using Kinderberg, but also on the roads in Germantown. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate your thoughts. Anybody else for citizen input?
Scott Heffley, W159 and 10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. Just two quick things. First of all, I see on the unfinished business alternatives for funding additional public safety positions. I hope we have new ideas or whatever ideas have been presented before. I've been coming to meetings almost 2 years. We're still talking about the same things we were 2 years ago about how to do it. Knowing that we're headed down the road to a referendum based on what I'm looking at, but can we do something now? And again, we're at budget time. Are we ever going to fund something, or are we just going to pass the buck and hope the referendum passes? Because if the referendum does not pass for any reason, then Chief Snow's in a pickle and we're looking at 2 more years out. So I am hoping that someone has an idea. I know I presented some ideas, you presented some ideas. Let's get them some help now, work on the referendum if that's the wish, and go from there. The final thing is, I have heard some tough stuff about Kinderberg. I just live off Donges Bay. I don't live by Kinderberg, but I'm less than a mile away, and I have heard things going on there that don't sound very good, okay? And the only thing I thought about, and maybe Chief Snow would know this, we used to have did we not have like a citizens patrol or something like that? We had some citizens that went through a patrol to help out Germantown. This was a number of years ago. Could we reactivate them to help at least be the eyes and ears for the community to call in to help you out? Because I know you can't just put officers at Kinderberg. You don't have that ability. So that's my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else for citizen input? Come on up. Name and address, please. You're Jan Miller.
Good evening. My name is Jan Miller, W151N10297 Windsong Circle West. Amy, you're new, must be new. Hi. I just wanted to reiterate or let you know that Brian Dolk, who just spoke before, has approached me several times over the last, I would say, month. And the incidents in Kinderberg Park have escalated and they've become just all different things. The guy climbing on the pole of the basketball pole, I mean, you removed the rim and the net, but they're still climbing up the pole. And I sent pictures. Charcoal is being dumped. I didn't know we had grills available for cooking out, but people are doing that. And then just yesterday, a lot of cars without license and driving up the ramp. But one other thing that I wanted to, driving up the walkway right up to the splash pad, driving up to the pavilion to drop things off. It used to be that people would drive up to the pavilion, unload their whatever picnic they're having or party stuff, and then they would leave and park on the road. Well, now we have people that are just parking on the grass or anywhere near the splash pad. So it has really impacted how safe people feel about being in the park. So if there's anything that you can do, please, and we'd be happy to watch it. But I think we need a specific phone call. We don't want to call emergency 911 necessarily, but give us direction on what we should do to direct our concerns. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and thoughts tonight. Anybody else for citizen input? Seeing as there is none, oh,
Sorry. Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. I used to live in an inner city area of St. Louis. We were in a very nice old Victorian community beside some areas where there were some people who were living in poverty. It sounds very similar to the situation. It will, in my experience, which was direct with this situation, this type of situation, it gets worse unless you do something about it. So I strongly suggest that signs be put up saying no charcoal grilling, because then you can point to those signs and the police can go over and do something about it. This has to be a full-on dealing with this situation. This behavior is not acceptable. And these people need to know that. Whether the dogs get sent over or what, I don't know, but something needs to be done about this, and soon. You can't just let it go. And I disagree with the Citizens Patrol. These people sound somewhat reckless, and that may not be a good idea. However, that's my opinion. Thanks.
as always, thank you for your time this evening. Anybody else for citizen input tonight? Okay. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of July 10th and August 1st as presented.
I'll second that.
A motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing that there's no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 5A, we'll start with our monthly police reports, please.
Thank you. I'm looking at the monthly report. There's no significant changes, no real outliers other than the 911 hangups. I will look at that. I can't really explain that jump in those numbers from last year. It could be a error in reporting. I don't know what that's about. I think our highlights over the last month would certainly be the NAC night event, which happened last week, which was a huge success. And I would just like to acknowledge Lieutenant Penny Schmidt, our SRO Tony Olson, and Community Officer Justin Recklitz for all the efforts they put into that event, along with a number of other officers from our department, another number of community members that helped us make that a success. We get a lot of donations, a lot of food. Roberts always donates custard, and we ran out of everything this year. So the numbers were up fairly significantly from last year, which they have tended to go up year to year. The one thing we were looking forward to was Flight for Life was going to bring their chopper in, and unfortunately they were called out when they were on their way over here. So we did not get to see that presentation, but both canines were out. Fire department did a number of demonstrations, and another huge success for the community. That's all I have.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Fire Department monthly report, please.
No real trending information. I mean, pretty much status quo for call volume and inspections. We did do a significant amount of pub ed in June. Unfortunately, sometimes due to our staffing, we do have to cut the pub ed short. We just don't have enough members in the station to complete the pub ed event that were planned. In June, something new that we're going to be adding to the monthly report next month is the number of occasions where we have 0 ambulances in the village due to multiple calls. In June, we had 13 separate occasions where we had no ambulances in the village to respond for any calls, just call volume, multiple EMS calls. And if we're at full staffing at 5, that leaves the battalion chief in the station to first respond to any EMS calls and or fire calls if we get them. We do all calls for people to come back. We'll get maybe 1 or 2 members to come back and backfill the station, but the 13 calls, I mean, 13 separate times, we don't have anybody in the village right now to provide an ambulance service with it. Another big kicker we were made aware of, actually in last week, Tuesday, is that our EMS billing company has since gone out of business, effective July 27th, and we received notification on Tuesday, August 1st. So that was a little bit of a shock for us. Since June 22nd, they've only billed 15 calls that we've ran, and we've had, I would say probably over 300 calls that we need to have billed. They gave us another company to go with right now. It's called EMS MC. Battalion Chief Holmes is in the audience right now. If you have more further questions for him on that, he can gladly take those. He's the one actually spearheading this. He has a meeting with them on August 9th to discuss their services. And if we're not going to get the amount of, we got to figure out what they're going to charge for their services. If it's too high, then we need to start looking for another service. So we're going to be backlogged on EMS billing for potentially another month or two. Lastly, July 1st, we put our new inspection program in. We're switching all of our fire EMS and inspection reporting to ImageTrend. We are a little slow rolling, so in July, don't be too shell shocked when you see that many inspections are not done yet. We may have 30 for July. That's probably a high number. We're working on the system, trying to iron out all the wrinkles that we have with it. Along with just doing the inspections, we have to go and get all the building information again. That means contact information. Our members are doing a lot of work inside the station right now, trying to make sure all the contact information's there. Going back from ProPhoenix to ImageTrend and pushing all the data from one to the next. So it's taking a little bit of time, but they are still going out and doing inspections. I don't want to make it sound like we're not doing inspections, but there's a lot of legwork that we have to do to get our current new software up to date. So we are working hard on that, and just don't be shocked in July when our inspections are down a little bit. Other than that, that's really all I have to report.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Any questions?
Can we get a more elaborate discussion or information about what you're doing for this billing process? You can go to that one if you want.
As Battalion Chief Asmondi mentioned, I was pretty shocked when I got an email stating that they went out of business. They're a local company out of Cedarburg. We'd already been in talks about changing billing companies, or at least looking into other options. This company that we currently use has a pretty low commission rate that we have to charge, or that they charge us to use their services. So that's very nice. I do suspect going with another company, we will have an increase in that, but also the potential for increase in revenue from the calls that we receive. I have 2 companies lined up on August 9th to do presentations for me, as well as Battalion Chief Rodriguez. And we'll find out more information then.
No forewarning that these guys were going under?
No, so they are a relatively small company. They have, I believe, 8 billing personnel. And the CEO passed away unexpectedly, and he was kind of their
Main guy.
And then their follow-ups just weren't able to keep up and ended up going under.
Okay. Something we're looking into for the new companies, that they have the depth that we need.
Yeah, so the first company that I'm meeting with on Wednesday is a nationwide company. They're the largest EMS billing company in the nation. With that, though, will come increased costs, are my suspicion. And then the second company I'm meeting with is throughout the entire Midwest. So they are also another very large company, and I think that the depth will definitely be there, and that'll be a consideration.
Are you going to give another presentation at our next meeting or at the next village board meeting after because it seems imperative we get this dealt with?
Yes, it is. I agree, very much so. We're approximately 280 calls behind right now in our billing. And that equates to roughly $100,000 in revenue. So yes, I can definitely give another presentation once I have more information from those 2 companies.
Okay.
But I have been in close discussions with 2, and then I will also reach out to furthers to see what sort of commission rates we can get, make sure the costs stay low.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me, do they do the billing? Do they do the collection as well?
They do, yes.
what is their success? The present company that you had, what was the success rate on the collection?
I don't have that percentage off the top of my head. Our current commission rate for the current company is 7%. And the average is about 5 to 12, so they're on the lower end of the cost spectrum of it. My initial conversation with one of the larger companies, they anticipated a revenue increase between 10 and 20%, which would equate to about $150,000 every year.
So they only get the commission if they collect.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
So do we have any timely filing issues on this? Or are these all private pay?
We will not have any, so long as they have transferred our account already to that EMS MC company. And as soon as I meet with them on Wednesday, they will start billing the calls from June 27th forward. And then if we make the determination that we're going to go with another company at that point, we will start filing with them. Yes. Go ahead.
My understanding is we had a month-to-month contract with them after our previous hire. So we've kind of been going month to month. They knew that we were looking at this, but they're continuing with a lot of the same people with this new company. So it looks transparent so far.
Additionally, I'm in conversations with surrounding area chiefs, trying to get a better commission rate if I can get several departments to go in on one company together. Any way to keep our costs lower is going to be beneficial.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yes.
Anything else? Let's move on to overtime reports, please. Reverse alphabetical order, the police department.
I'm sorry, you want police first?
Yes.
So our staffing woes are what they have been for some time now. We do have another officer hired right now. He is a lateral transfer, so we have the potential to get him on the road maybe a little bit quicker. It's hard to say, but at least he does not have to go through the academy. We're anticipating he'll be able to start in the next couple of weeks. And as will be discussed later, we did hire another one to start in the academy, which will hopefully give us a head start on next year.
Thank you. Fire department?
Stays consistent from month and month until we can get more depth, more paid on premise members right now to try to maintain our 5 personnel. There's overtime costs that come with it. We had one individual that just completed the fire training for paid on premise, and she's got a couple more contacts to be checked off on EMS. So she'll be able to start picking up more shifts as she gets checked off. But it's just we don't have really much depth right now to share the wealth with our members. So.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Moving on to updates, police department, any policy updates this month?
And none from the police.
Thank you. Fire department, any policy updates this month?
None from the fire department.
Thank you. Next item is unfinished business, alternatives for funding additional public safety positions.
May I interject for a moment? I'd like to make a motion to take things out of order. I would like to jump down to new business items B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. I think those can go quickly and we can get these people out of here that don't need to be here.
C, D, E, F, G, H.
Yes, that is all the license renewals. Correct.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? We'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve items B through H as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Do I hear any discussion? Trustee Narrator.
One question, are these renewals that were overlooked for July 1st, or are they? Because normally I know the normal renewal time is July 1st, so
Good question.
July 1st.
I see that, but I mean, were they just overlooked?
That question.
Aaron's coming forward.
Aaron will know the answer to this question.
She's here. She's got to talk.
I'm
lot
sorry,
of
I
these
kind,
have
I
been-
slightly heard it. So you were just asking,
I was just I was just asking on items, a lot of the items, under new business, the licenses, were those overlooked for
Some of
July that
them
we're
were.
catching up now and getting these?
Some of them were,
Okay.
one was because of a sale of a facility.
Yep.
So, but the majority, there were 2 originals that were not,
Okay,
but the rest were,
okay,
yes.
so there were some are existing. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Chief Snow, any concerns?
No concerns.
Motion's been made and seconded. All
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes.
You're good to go now. Thanks.
A, alternative fundings for additional public safety positions. The village administrator would like to speak for a few brief moments.
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments here. This has been an item that has been on previous agendas in the past. We've presented information. The police department is looking for an additional 4 officers at a cost of $415,000. The fire department expresses their needs at 12 firefighters at a cost of $1,425,000 for a total cost of just under $1.6 million. In the past, we've talked about some alternatives for funding these. One option that's available is shifting the public fire protection fee to the utility bill, which would create $537,000 in funding availability. Another option would be to shift the crack filling and seal coating program to the wheel tax for $350,000. And we could likely carry over some unused levy limit funds for $100,000. That would provide funding for about $987,000, about 2/3 of the total amount, with a remaining gap of $588,000. The committee's also asked to look at the 2023 budget and the 2024 budget to look at how many positions could be funded. And I think without spending a lot of time going into details here, much of that was presented at a recent village board meeting on the 2024 budget. We've significantly increased both the fire and the police department budget to accommodate increased salaries for those positions. So the problem with staffing is twofold. One is funding positions, creating positions. The second is also having salary structures, compensation that would allow us to attract people and be able to recruit people into those positions. We need to be able to do both. And I think what you see in the 2023 budget and to a greater extent in the 2024 budget are increased salaries for the existing positions. So we are starting the 2024 budget process with an $876,000 budget gap. So there's not extra room in the budget to add additional positions in addition to continuing to fund the ones that we have. And in summary, after discussing this multiple times, the only realistic way to fully fund the public safety need is through a referendum. And although it's not a pleasant or not something that anybody wants to move forward with, I guess I would urge the committee to move that option at least to the village board for discussion. Whether if it's, and you could do that either with a recommendation to move forward with a referendum. You could do it with no recommendation. You could move it forward with a negative recommendation, but I would ask the committee to move that forward to the village board for consideration. The next opportunity to get a referendum on the ballot would be April of 2024.
Thank you, Administrator Kreckler. Any questions regarding those statements, please? Trustee Nyrader?
The options, excuse me, the options that are presented here are pretty much, as we know, we've discussed at the public, the fire protection fee, the seal coat or the wheel tax, and et cetera have been addressed at prior meetings. I know personally, I don't believe in using that. The levy limit carryover, okay, 100,000 isn't going to be that big of a dent. The thing, I guess, with a referendum, and I do feel now that that's the only way to go here, is that, yeah, if you first can have it in April, which I understand, there's no fall election. Do we wait till April, which would mean if it's passed, it's going to be quite a while before both areas are going to see the results of that. But at least they would know that it's coming. Or, do you then the question comes when you go to a referendum is, do you piecemeal this thing and say, okay, in 1 year we're going to do half for fire and police and half the other year or whatever. But I think we need, for that amount of money, $1 million, $1.5 million, let's say $1.6 million, and this is just going to continue to go up, is I think we need to have input from the community and to spend that amount of money. Personally, I don't believe we need to hire a firm to help us publicize this. I don't think this is as difficult as the prior referendum question we had regarding the Richfield water situation. I think we should have enough talent on hand here to do that. The only question is, by doing that delay, we are going to delay unless we can squeeze in, 1 or 2 positions in the 2024 budget. Yeah, the 2024 budget as somewhat of a start. So I personally, while I'm not crazy about referendums, I do feel now that is the only way to go here. It's because of the huge dollar amount that's there. And I don't know, Steve, or I don't know, if anybody has an idea here, if you were to add $1.5 million, $1.6 million to the budget, what that would be as far as on a $250,000 home, it would, let's face it, let's say 400, it would cost that much or whatever. I'm sure that maybe you guys have those numbers or can get those real easy. Because I think that would also give the us and the village board a better decision to make it. But this subject too, I have to admit, I'm only on the board for a little over 2 years, and that's the subject matter that has been brought up at more meetings, the topic, than any other topic. And again, I feel the only way to address this and really get a community input, and I think you're going to get community input on this, is to go with a referendum. I just wish there was a better way to get some type of a piecemeal for next year, that they could get something. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Trustee Pieper, please.
Before we send this to a referendum, strongly that we look into.
It's on. Yeah. I believe we should contact Washington County and take a real look at the cost savings of moving dispatching countywide like Hartford did, Mequon did. This is becoming more and more common and actually rare for villages of our size to have our own dispatching. So before we send this to a referendum, I want to look deeper into that and get details on that. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Trustee Bohm.
Mr. Krecklow, Administrator Krecklow, what is the amount of money we're getting back from the state? That was a topic of discussion a couple weeks ago. I've been busy. What's our final number that we're getting from the state?
The additional shared revenue that we'll be getting is $498,000, and that's already taken into account when we calculate the $876,000 budget gap. So without that $498,000 from in state shared revenue, our budget gap would have been closer to $1.4 million.
Okay. I have heard from the state that if we, from the county, if we do shared services, we could get a minimum of $125,000.
Or like over 200.
I thought it was $125,000 plus a $90,000 thing for a total of 215, something around that number.
I'm not quite sure the exact numbers of those, but I do know that since Hartford moved their dispatching to countywide, that all of the infrastructure is already set up there, so there would be no charge for us in that sense.
And that's where the 90,000 came from, is because we wouldn't have to pay for the
And whatever the cost savings are, I know,
county.
Administrator Krekel, you told me previously that we wouldn't be able to keep those cost savings, but now we are able to.
We are, there are, have been some changes in some state law and state program regarding consolidation to provide greater incentives for communities to participate in those programs. And there are a number of areas where we're starting conversations with the county about consolidation of services to try to close that $876,000 gap.
I think it'd be a little premature to send this to a referendum as of right now until that's really looked at.
I would say that given the size of the gap that we have, we may have to do many of these other things to close that gap. I think, you know, there's, I think it's very unlikely that we would be able to close the $876,000 gap and come up with $1.6 million for the additional public safety positions.
So, yeah, continue. Thank
I have-
Okay, so, with the 498 and the 215, I think we got there $713,000. In my years on this board, no offense to you guys, but both the police and fire department have always asked for the max that they want. There's always a year that they come in and want everything. We've never been able to give them everything, but we give them some more than what they have today. Is there an opportunity where we can, at $105,000 per police officer, if I do 3 police officers, not 4, that's $315,000 out of that 713, which would leave me $400,000 plus minus for the fire department.
I don't think that this, respectfully, I don't think that this is the job of this board to do. This, what you're doing, David, is first of all commendable, and I think we need to do it. But I don't think that these 4 individuals sitting here, I don't think that this is our job. I don't think that's what we are to do. I know that there is at least one person who may disagree with me.
I respectfully disagree with you. I believe it is our job to bring forward multiple options to present to the board to decide what we're going to do. Here is something that we could achieve with the money that we potentially have coming in, and I haven't even gone to a referendum.
498's already been used. So that's,
The 498 is included in these other numbers.
yeah, but that is calculated in the $800,000 gap for next year already. If we didn't have that 498 for next year, the gap would be 1.1, I believe. Because we're getting that mid-year, we're not getting 498.
We will actually get the full 498, so, and that's all taken into account, so it would be about 1.4 to 1.5 million. The way that I would say that we're using that 498, and I think, you know, there's, as I kind of touched on, there's multiple pieces to achieving the staffing levels that we need. Part of it is adding the positions, but part of it's also making sure that we fill the positions, which has been getting more and more difficult. And there have been communities that have gone to referendum, added positions, and they sit vacant because they can't fill the jobs. The 498 in essence went to increase salaries for the police and fire department, so that we can keep those positions filled. So that money has already been accounted for.
Well, I have had people contact me about the options that have been presented here, the shifting of money to the utility bills, the crack filling. Residents don't want that. They don't want that.
Mhm.
Half of this community doesn't pay utility bills. Those that do pay the utilities don't want the full burden of this $537,000 on their utility bills, no matter how short a time it is. I understand some people think that's the best way to do it, but there's another half of this community that doesn't think it's the best way to do it. So I think we need to have the police and fire department come back with, we can't fully fund and fully staff the police department. You guys have asked for it every year for 18 years that I've been on this board, and we just can't achieve it. What can we achieve? What can we work with? What's the right program to go with going forward? I think we have to have a reduced number unless we want to go out for the referendum, and then that's a crapshoot. Because I think people are going to look for us to save the money somewhere else somehow. So that's all I've got for now.
Thank you. Trustee Pieper.
I know you say that it's not up to us four to figure out where to come up with the money. And I don't know if you were here for that meeting.
I was.
That President Wolter, sitting right over there, had some very stern words and said that it is most definitely up to the Public Safety Committee, not the GGF, to find the money. Regardless of what he thought, we're really going to need to figure this out at Committee of the Whole and during budgets. And where did this gap in the budget come from, Steve? Like, what did we? That's $1 million is a huge.
That was the presentation, if you recall, from the village board, last village board meeting.
Audit, so we just.
Well, not from the audit, from the finance director went through
Last week.
it went through the, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago. Yes. And much of that is related to salary increases, and as alluded to, the lion's share of that went to public safety as needed in order to make sure that we retain the staff that we have in the police and fire departments. And I can, I guess in a separate discussion, go through it in detail, or the finance director can. But there's a significant gap that we still need to close.
Okay. I honestly, I think that we're gonna have to figure this out at the budget meetings. I think we need to figure it out there. We need to look into shared services with Washington County. And I mean, it's just it's premature to send it to a referendum right now.
Trustee Baum.
You've got to, if we're going to send it at all to a referendum, we got to prepare for it.
Yeah.
So we need to start making those strides now so that we can get it on the agenda, the referendum ballot.
But I think we need to exhaust every.
And I think you run them parallel.
Yeah,
You got to go down the referendum path and the budgeting at the same time.
I respectfully disagree. I think I mean, come budget season, we may be able to figure it out. We're gonna have to make some really big cuts.
Then you just don't do the referendum. Figure it out, don't do the referendum.
Exactly.
But you have to do all the processes. Have to do all the processes for the referendum in case we can't figure it
I
out.
understand that.
So that's why I say they gotta be done in parallel.
further discussion. Would anybody like to make a motion?
No.
Shot here. It sounds like there's time as far as if we want to get to a referendum. As Brian was sitting here, what is it like? You need 90 days or 120 days to get approval, isn't it, from the state to have the referendum? As to how you're going to do that. So I mean, we have time. But to me, it sounds like there's differences of opinion right on here, and that we have more homework to do and more studying to do to come up with possible alternatives, or you know, when we looked at the, and I saw the articles too about the city of Hartford in the paper with the dispatch. And I kept saying to myself, why aren't we doing that? But I know that some things have changed of recent. So I guess we need to study that. And I'll look also at the needs of the fire and police departments to see what can they live with. We probably aren't going to be able to make them whole. Is this it or not? So I guess I would make a motion that we continue to study the issue of funding the public safety positions that would be placed on next month's agenda. And that some of the points that were brought up here this evening are studied at and brought back to us as a committee.
I'll second that for discussion.
Chief Snow, please.
Just quickly, when we start talking about the Washington County taking over our dispatch services, I just would like to quickly point out, you would be talking about them adding the second and third largest municipalities in Washington County. I know their struggles in hiring dispatchers. I don't know how they can say right now that they could effectively pull that one off. I'm up at the Chiefs Conference right now. I was discussing the PEG group, but we are talking with agencies who use the Waukesha County Consortium, and their struggles over there are mighty. And agencies that were promised their own channel don't have their own channel. I don't think for one second that down the road Germantown would have their own channel. We would be stacked with other municipalities. And we all understand it'd be a very, very different level of service that our citizens receive. My concern is them being able to even do it. I don't see how they could. I really don't. Just my 2 cents in there.
Thank you, Chief Snow. Trustee Pieper.
If residents right now dial 911, does it go to Washington County or does it go to Germantown here?
If it's landline, it comes to us. If it's, so most go to the county. Most of them are on cell phone. No, none of it. They transfer it. Yep.
That's dispatched locally.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Baum, please.
What I would like is a further understanding of that. What's the dollar value that we're even talking about? Is my $215,000 correct, or is it 50 grand? What are you going to go through in shifting it up there? What's the staffing situation that we will reduce if we move it up there for both departments? What is the reduction of service that you perceive that we should inform the residents of? I'd like to have somebody reach out to the county and get an actual number other than the stuff that I'm hearing quickly in various meetings.
Administrator Kreckler would like to say a few things.
Couple of thoughts here. And first of all, on dispatch, it is something that we're looking at. We're working on it to see if it's feasible, what it would save, when it could be implemented, how the new state law impacts. There's still information that's coming out about the new state law that we're trying to figure out exactly how it would apply to a situation like this, or how things could be structured to best take advantage of it. What I would say is that there is, it's not a matter of calling up the county, having a meeting next week and say, all right, next month, can you guys take this on? I think we are starting a process and looking at it. And if it does lead to a place where this is feasible, it's something that would at best take place mid-year next year. That there's that kind of planning and logistics that need to take place with it. Also, when you look at the savings relative to what the public safety needs are, we have a total of 8 dispatch positions right now that are, and those are paid significantly less than the positions that we're talking about adding. And they do much more than dispatch. They're the record keepers, the administrative staff that are working on things. So it would not be there would be some level of staff that would need to be kept for those other operations. There'd also be questions that the board would have to answer. Right now, the dispatchers are the 24/7 staff here in the village. And that's a level of service discussion that the village board would have to take on, is whether that's something that the village board would want to maintain. So that's another question that's out there. And while I understand and agree it's something that we need to look at, need to pursue, I think it's not something that in any way replaces the need for a referendum to address the larger staffing needs. So, you know, we can and we will continue working on those things. You'll hear more about them as part of the budget process. There will be more reports back to this committee on those things. I would suggest that if there's more that the committee wants to do before this goes to the board, another suggestion would be, instead of asking staff to look at other alternatives, in my opinion, I think we've exhausted the alternatives. I don't think there's anything new that we're going to come back with next month. If you'd like us to start drafting language for referendum and look at options for how a referendum could be structured, that would be something that we could come back to this committee with next month to show you and to answer some of the questions, the impact on a home, that kind of thing. That would be another option that the committee could take.
Thank you, Administrator Krecklo. Trustee Baum, please.
I would welcome that information, but I would also like a spreadsheet on the 4 police officer positions, what the salaries for those positions are, the 12 firefighter positions, what the salaries for those are all going to be, so that I can see. I'm a visual person. I want to see what the numbers are, because when I say I want to back it down to only partial staffing, what staffing do I need? How many, Assistant Chief, how many ambulances do we have today? You say we're 13 calls short. And that's with 4 ambulances, 3 ambulances? What do we have today?
Staff with 2 ambulances right now.
Staff with 2 ambulances and 13 calls we missed in the course of 30 days?
It would not necessarily 13 calls, it's just 13 times where we don't have an ambulance to respond if another ambulance call comes in.
Okay, so, and those 2 ambulances run how many calls? 60 calls, 100 calls? How many are those 2 ambulances running in this period of time that they missed 13 of them?
Monthly, it's roughly, I mean, you can assume 180 calls.
180 calls and we've missed 13. So if I were to add 1 set of paramedics and another ambulance, that would solve that problem per shift?
We also have to factor in, car accidents, fire responses, because right now, if we have 2 ambulances out, that leaves the battalion chief on duty. If we're at five staff, our full staff, that leaves the battalion chief, and then we're now waiting on Menominee Falls for auto aid, and then if we get 1 or 2 members. Now, if we look at it as an actual structure fire, we're going to be so far behind the 8 ball with having no one in-house.
Okay. So
An additional 2 per shift, not ideal. I mean, it'll give us, yes, a 3rd ambulance, but we're still, if we have a fire or if we have 2 more individuals and we have another ambulance call, all 3 ambulances are out, we're back at square one again, where we don't have anybody respond for car accident, fire alarm, structure fire.
And where I'm going is, where's the sweet spot? If I get 2 more people per shift, that's half of your staff. But now I got everything covered with 3 ambulances instead of 2. I got to go buy a new ambulance. That's going to cost me $800,000. But I'm not missing anything, it sounds like. I've got everything covered, but I'm not in tune with how you guys do your staffing. I've always had issues dealing with the fire department because I've never understood what they do and how they do it. So I would like to get something that shows me better what the 12 people are and what the 4 people are. So that's my take for next next meeting.
Thank you, trustee Baum. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Could you read back the motion, please?
Motion to study the funding and put it on the next meeting agenda, meaning funding budget or funding for a referendum, study the different options.
And is that
That was made by
trustee Narada?
trustee Mann,
And-
seconded by Bob.
Trustee Narada, did you mean this committee or the village board?
Well, this committee.
This committee.
Yeah.
Next,
And
yes,
can I just amend it to probably change a little bit the wording that Steve used to come up with alternatives, even for the referendum question itself and the possible cost, et cetera, et cetera. To add that to that, yes.
Is that okay with the second? Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. New business, item 7A. Did we do A? Was A included or no? 7A.
I'll make a motion to approve item A.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Chief Snow, any concerns?
And no concerns.
We'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to 7I. Pro Phoenix Multi-Juris.
This is something we would like to see approved. It would be us switching to the multi-juris where county would basically host our RMS, largely modeling what Ozaki County did before they went with the joint dispatch. It would allow us just improved efficiency in the need where we had the concern that we might have to have county dispatch for us on third shift. This is a much more seamless way to accomplish that than what we would have had to do before. It allows us to basically just transfer it so that they can dispatch for a shift if needed. But it just allows us to reduce some costs annually. We haven't got the savings numbers, but we believe it's going to be around $12,000 to $15,000 annual on what we would pay for our maintenance. So there is some reduced savings to that. But the initial transfer we anticipated was going to cost $77,980. We've since then learned it was $75,700. We were able to secure a grant for that unless the county, in interest of consolidating and sharing sales tax, wants to cover that cost because there is some benefit to them. That would be my recommendation for paying that.
Thank you, Chief Snow. Committee? Trustee Baum?
Yeah, it goes back to everybody's starting to ask for stuff again. We don't have it in the budget. Where's it, what is this coming out of? Coming out of,
It's a Department of Transportation grant. We've already been approved on the grant.
given the grant, so you already have the money, it's not Germantown money? I'd like to understand, I think I'd like to defer this till next meeting when we have understanding what the county is doing to combine services. If we're not gonna combine services, then I'd say go ahead and do it. If we do combine services, do we get this money back? How does this relate to that?
And I could real quickly jump in and say this is grant money. It's not village dollars. I think the question that Chief Snow raised is if we could talk with the county, if the county would be willing to pick this up, we might be able to use those grant dollars for another purpose. And we will explore that. The one thing that I would mention as far as a reason not to delay this is there have been some staffing issues. Right now, we're fully staffed. We're doing well at dispatch, but in the case where if there were staffing issues and they have come up on occasion, this would allow us to kind of seamlessly move the third shift dispatch operations over to the county as kind of an emergency or backup. So while it's it isn't likely that we're going to need that in the next month. It's one of the reasons why Chief Snow is bringing this forward.
Trustee Peeper, please.
Make a motion to approve new business item I.
Motion has been made. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? We'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 3-1. Number 7, item J, please, purchase of a drone.
Our drone program has been very successful. What we have found is that, like any other technology, it fails from time to time. Most agencies that have a drone program do have a backup. We're looking to purchase a backup from the grant that we have had sitting for the last year that was basically offered to all agencies across Wisconsin. That is going to come to the point where we need to spend that money, and we haven't yet. So this would be something that would benefit the department, the village at large.
It's 100% grant dollars? 100% grant dollars is my question.
That's correct, yes.
Move approval as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Committee, any discussion? Trustee Peeper, please.
Chief Snow, I know I had talked to you about the drones before.
Yes.
I did reach out to my homeowners association, who reached out to several of the neighbors. And they are all still very uneasy and not in favor of the drones only being, I guess, the training for the drones only to be over our subdivision. They feel very insecure about having the drones fly over our houses, in our backyards, while our children are playing, we're sitting around a fire and there's drones. They just are not, none of the people in that subdivision are happy with it.
And I think it would be beneficial to allow us to just do a presentation with them so they understand exactly what the training entails and we're not recording. And certainly I don't think it's an issue for us to move the training around. I just don't want to say it'll never be in the back area. But I'm certainly
Every once in a while, but just because we live by the police station, they were a little upset that we're going to be subject to having drones fly over our house while we're in our backyards grilling out, or they just weren't in favor of that. I will talk to the president of the association and mention the whole training though.
Sure. And I will talk to Lieutenant McCulloch and I can report directly to you if that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion, please? We'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Last item is issue of obscene music and public disturbances and damage at Kinderberg Park. Personally, I'd like to postpone this instead of to rush this topic. Committee, what do you guys want to do?
I don't want to wait a month to deal with this. My understanding is basketball nets have been taken down. Our residents can't enjoy our parks.
Yep.
I don't want to wait another month.
I am fine.
And we obviously don't have money for cameras right now. And I know, can we change, you're on Park and Rec. I don't know if it is a possibility that we do not rent the pavilion to anybody but Germantown residents at this time. And we increase the security deposit.
I saw Gil walk in and out.
I don't know if we're able to do that.
Administrator Krecklow, please.
Just in response to that question, we are looking at different rental rates for resident versus non-resident usage. And we are looking at increasing the security deposit. And I think that's something we'll be able to implement in the near future.
Administrator Krecklow, am I able to make a motion to pitch this to the village board, even though it's not technically on the agenda for tonight?
So the issues that we currently have in Kinderberg Park are not 100% related to rental of the park. The people driving on the paths,
Mhm.
and I have personally been run off the path 3 times now. 2 of the 3 times, those were Germantown residents, and I know that because they told me so. So what we have going on in the park is by restricting the rental, even by stopping the rental of the pavilion, we are not going to solve the issues in the park.
I'm just saying if we could bring the whole board into this issue and see what we can do.
The,
Because I know we're short on time. We're already 5 minutes past when the village board is supposed to
the
start.
rental
to bring it
structures and the
into-
deposits don't need to go to the village board. That's something that.
I know, but I'm just saying like this whole item
Well,
on
can
the
we
agenda,
get the
can we
item?
just like forward it to the village board
Does it
meeting
appear,
tonight?
does it appear on the village board agenda tonight?
I don't know, but if we made a motion,
Not already, no.
Then
Kinderberg is on the agenda, but it's for budgeting.
For the
that's for the playground.
playground equipment.
It's strictly for playground?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we can't do that.
We should have taken this issue first, I feel like.
Well,
Has the
I don't
Park
know.
and Recreation Committee looked at this at all? Has it
The-
been
the-
before Park and Rec?
The Park and Rec Committee has discussed some of these challenges, yes.
Why don't we let them, instead of trying to do something really quick and then we don't do it right, why don't we have them look at it and come with recommendations? Maybe they can talk to Chief Snow, et cetera, but then bring it to us, but have them work on some recommendations as to what they think. That's where, to me,
There-
that's where
there-
it belongs.
There's a Park and Rec Committee meeting on August 23rd. We can get that on the agenda for that, yes.
In the sorry.
Trustee Pieper?
In the meantime, Chief Snow, is there anything that the residents can do themselves about this? I mean, citizens arrest, I don't know. if that's what you-
No, I wouldn't do that. I would encourage them to continue to call. I checked the logs before I came over and we've only taken 2 calls, one from yesterday that Mr. Dolk talked about, one from last month. So we would have anticipated there being more calls. Our officers are doing extra patrol. We do have portable cameras that we can potentially use to aid us in our investigation. But
In that case, I'd like to make a motion to use the portable cameras and put them up at Kinderberg if that's a possibility.
we have to look into that a little more. We have to see if there's a good place to put them for starters.
Is that a 911 call or a non-emergency call?
If it's anything, certainly if there's a risk to human safety, it's a 911, but even if it's a risk to property, they can call 911 for that.
And then can we immediately put some type of barricades up on the sidewalks? They have a little ramp to them. They're 0 curb. Can we put
That's a great idea.
some barricades on there to?
I'd like to remind the committee that that was actually in the budget and the village board took that out of the budget.
I'm not talking permanent. I'm talking street crew go out there with some A-frame barricades and put a bunch of them across there. They have to hop a curb. They have to really go around a barricade. At least it's another attempt to stop them or a signal that says, you're not allowed in here. This is not for driving on.
Yeah, I can certainly talk to the highway department to see what they have available. I'm sure they would have something that we could use.
That's a great idea. It's something temporary until we find a more long-term solution. I hate putting Band-Aids on things, but I think that's all we can do right now.
Committee, anything else?
No. I make a motion that this be brought back next month.
I second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? We'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next month, September meeting, Labor Day is Monday, the 4th. September 11th, Monday, or is that plan, it's planning?
first Monday, the second Monday of the month is, fourth is village board.
Mm-hmm.
What about the 18th? Before the village board meeting?
18th at 6 PM?
That would be, GGF.
GGF is on,
Yeah, yep.
The 5th?
wait, what time is planning commission on the 11th?
6:30.
Can we do 5:30 here?
See what we got, when we did it in an hour.
Hmm.
Still like to start them at 5:30 and give us an hour and a half.
What about that Wednesday?
6th,
Public Works at 5:30. Do you want to do 6:30?
I can do that.
Can we do 6:30? On the 6th?
That's a possibility, yeah.
Next meeting will be September 6th at 6:30 PM in this room. Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.
At what time?
6:30.
Okay.